Hi, is Misha Enda Murray, agus Misha an Stúthór, dun féle gan an na Herons an Astral. Da sorm kind tonight an Nuala O'Connor, the writer and director of the wonderful documentary In Time, Dónal Lunny. Nuala, tá fáilte roid chuig an Astral.
Gur míle mágad.
Nuala, I suppose first thing I wanted to ask was what's the latest on Dónal's health after people have seen the film?
Well, as people will have seen in the film, I mean, he was at pretty low ebb at the end of the film. But he was actually after treatment he was still in treatment at that point. And on that day of the shoot with Christy, I actually took him out of hospital and brought him back to hospital after that. And he spent another possibly a few weeks in hospital after that. But since then, I mean, he looks so much better now. He looks nothing like that person at the end of the film. He looks much healthier. He's in recovery. He's beginning to play again. And I'm really hopeful actually about his health. He's looking good.
Brilliant. I just wanted to say, like, the film blew me away. I'm a huge fan of Dónal and all his work, and I thought you did such a wonderful job with capturing him and his music and just the good things that come from his music. I thought it was beautiful. So just to put that on the record.
Well, thank you. That's a lovely compliment to get. And I know it's a cliche, but it was the culmination for me in my career to make that film. I know Dónal a long time. I know the music a long time. I would say that making a film with Dónal Lunny, if you had said to me 30 years ago, you'll make a film with Dónal Lunny, I would have said, don't be ridiculous. You know, it was just a key moment in my working life. It is a cliche to say it was an honor to do something, but it really, really was. And I felt that Dónal, because he's such a modest artist, and because he's always been, you know, the kind of person to one side, almost not the featured artist in a lot of his work, and certainly like as a producer, as a composer, as an arranger, as an accompanist, as an innovator. It's all work that is not kind of front and center stage all the time. And I really thought he'd been underrepresented in that way, you know, in the record. And I just wanted to do that because for me, he is the towering artist in my lifetime of contemporary traditional and folk music. So that was just a huge thrill, actually, for me to do.
So you mentioned that you've known Dónal a long time, and I think we spoke about going back. I think the first time I saw Dónal was 1977 in Drogheda at the Féile na Bóinne, and you were involved in organising the Féile na Bóinne.
Well, the Féile na Bóinne was a most amazing event. It was Sean Corcoran who organised that event, and I'm happy to say that next weekend his daughter Rosa has revived some of the spirit of that event in her Sean Corcoran series, the third year of a festival in honour of Sean, but basically playing into a lot of Sean's interests and achievements in traditional music. Sean, of course, was a bouzouki player as well as a great singer and a collector of songs and a recorder of the music of the Northeast. So I worked as a volunteer on that festival. It really was what we would call a lig for somebody like me, because I got to go to everything, and that was really my motivation. But it was a fantastic festival. And it really was at some level organised chaos. I don't think people understand nowadays. They can't, because they've no experience of the early days of festivals. but they really were, put together with glue and string and goodwill and people giving lifts to people. And there was no internet, there were no mobile phones. And at that particular, at the one I think before that, maybe that year or the one before, we were all out in Clogherhead, which I'm sure you know, and in the hotel there, and a singing sort of session had struck up in the bar. And all of the singers in the session were meant to be in Drogheda at performing at a gig. And Tommy Munnelly, a singer and song collector himself, was being sent out by Sean every 20 minutes to try and get them into cars to go back in to do what they were supposed to be doing, which was appear at the concert. But they were too involved. They eventually were hustled out, but it was hard going. And in that group, there was Sarah Ann O'Neill, Darragh O'Connor, Frank Hart, Dolores Keane, Paul Brady. I mean, it was just a roll call of singers. And people forget that Paul himself was no mean unaccompanied singer in the tradition. Anyway, they are very happy memories. And kind of sorry, I've deflected away now from Dónal, but that was all part of that scene. Dónal would have been part of all of that, movement.
And what about yourself? What you grew up in Dublin? Where did you get the passion for music and film?
Well, I did grow up in Dublin, and my father was a very musical man, but he was interested in classical music. He really wasn't a classical music and jazz, and he wasn't really interested in traditional music at all, and knew very little about it. But he took me when I was very young, because my mother was very busy. He took me to classical concerts when I was 8 and 9, and so even though I really didn't know what was going on, I loved live music. I like it, there's something just, you just can't match the live event, even if in my case it was a chamber quartet playing quite difficult Schubert or Beethoven or something like that. It's still, when musicians strike up, and particularly with acoustic instruments, the thrill of that has never ever left me. And the other thrill that has never left me is the curtain in a cinema pulling back and credits growing up for a film and titles. So it's just magic. I mean, that's really what it was. So when I was a student in Trinity College, and I had a friend there, and he and I set up a club, a university club, by the name of the Folk Music and Dance Society. So that almost has a 19th century ring to it. But that really, we just invited people to come and play at that. And that was an immersion, like a deep immersion into folk and traditional music, not just Irish folk and traditional music, but English and Scottish. Like, I met all sorts of people that way, and some really memorable gigs in Trinity. And then we started with other people in the Common Gaelic in Trinity, the Action of Trídáide, which was a folk and music and traditional festival, a full festival in the college. And it is amazing to me now to think that, a bunch of 10, 19 and 20-year-olds could do that. I mean, it's rare today that they would get the freedom to do that.
Fine. What year were you in Trinity? Oh, I was there 78. So
71 to 75.
Wow, that's amazing. Hey,
2 years.
and coming, what was the inspiration for actually getting down and starting the documentary with Dónal? How did that come about?
Well, as I say, the relationship with Dónal goes back a long, long time. And he was, so it started in things like the Dublin Folk Festival, and just getting to know him by booking the bands and groups that he was in, and the musicians that he played with. And then moving on, when Philip King and I, my partner and husband in Southwind Blows, we made a series for BBC and RTE called Bringing It All Back Home, which looked at the journey of Irish music to outside the country. And then Dónal was the musical director for that series. So we went on the road with Dónal, and that series we filmed it over about 6 weeks in 1989. We went to Nashville, we went to New York, we went up to see. We recorded Pete Seeger. We did all kinds of things in America, and then we shot also some footage in the UK, in London. London Irish musicians, Roger Sherlock, and those people. And then, and a very young, as far as I remember, a group called Toss the Feathers, which had Mike McGoldrick, a very young Mike McGoldrick. I think he was about 16 or 17. Anyway, and then lots and lots of other stuff in Ireland. And then some years later, TG Carr, the Irish Language Channel, set up, and we did a 13-part series, two series of 13 parts with Dónal called Sult, which was a pure studio-based performance series. And Dónal was he brought in a house band with Nolly Casey and Steve Cooney and who else was in that band? Anyway, Graham Henderson, other musicians that he worked with, and that was a fantastic thing that went out in the first iteration of TG Carr, which was then called Telefish na Gaeilge. And so the relationship with Dónal was there all along, and we did other things with him, not as kind of as high profile as that. We worked with him again on the series we did with Micheál O'Sullivan, River of Sound. So he's been there forever. And then he rang me a couple of years ago to say that he had turned down an invitation to be involved in a program for television about himself. And then I think he kind of slightly regretted it. And then he asked me, would I do something? And I think that he thought, well, he knew us really well. He knew our work. He'd worked with us before. He trusted us. And then I think I've never really asked him, because I didn't. When Dónal asks you to do something, you don't say why or yeah, I'll think about it or whatever. I didn't. I just said yes. And on reflection, I think he might have thought he needed to do something that put a kind of a marker down. I think that might have been it. But anyway, I would have encouraged him in that all along. And that's how it started. We just started to work then. And I just said to him, I don't really want to make something for television. I want to make a film. I thought Dónal needed a film. He's an outstanding artist, and his process is so is unique and interesting and outstanding. And I think it just needed the breadth of a 90-minute feature documentary to do it justice.
What I was taken by the look of the film. What can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to shoot in black and white? And
the director of photography is Colm Hogan. He's just a wonderful, wonderful photographer. Really started out as stills photography, and then moved into audiovisual moving photography, and then. I had worked with him on 2 previous films, and he said, I think this should be black and white. And he showed me a film. He got me to look at a film, the Nick Cave film that Nick Cave made, that was made with Nick Cave after Nick Cave's son died. And there was something very beautiful and elegiac. Like, it wasn't a copy of that film at all, but it was the black and white. I thought it made everything very spare. You could see the lines of the story. You weren't getting distracted by shiny, coloured archive film, or all of the noise that goes with colour. So I just said, yeah, let's do that. That's a great idea. And I didn't even think about it. I just said, that's it. Yeah, we do it that way. And I love black and white. And another 2 films I think that I look at again and again, and I really love, and they're nothing like the Dónal film, and they're not even documentaries, are the Polish films, Ida or Ida, I can't remember how you pronounce that, and the jazz singer, and I just think they're beautiful films, and I just thought the portraiture in black and white is just unequaled. You get everything. You get the face, the emotions, the spareness of the human life or something. It's just a wonderful medium.
What were some of the challenges around making the film for you?
Getting to grips with the material because it's vast. The amount of musicians, bands, projects, and setups that Dónal has been involved in over the years is vast, like vast. He started producing really in his early 20s. And if you were to do a straightforward, like, biog film, you'd be here still. It would run to a series. So I knew that wasn't the way to do it. So I thought Dónal is a musician and an artist who's still working, still engaged, still creating. So I thought I'm going to go with the Dónal I find today. Like, obviously, we have to bring in the important parts of his work and how he got to here, how he developed these sounds. But I thought I would take a musical approach rather than a biographical, discographical approach. So that, for instance, he has a very particular take on percussion. So I went with that, and then we would use the archive, if we were using archive, to demonstrate that. And ditto with rhythm. He has a very particular way of approaching rhythm, and he likes particular tune types. So I thought I will use that as the portal into the archive, not do I was born in and then I met and then we did and so on. Because I just wanted to do it. I just thought this was a bit more holistic. And I also wanted to get across the fact that Dónal did not grow up in a traditional music, with traditional musicians. There's no traditional musicians in his immediate family. And although he spent all of his summers in Donegal, in the Gaeltacht, in an Irish-speaking area, the people around, the immediate people in his family, very large extended family, were not singers or players. So he came to traditional music through an urban kind of setting in Kildare, where he lived in Newbridge, County Kildare, in through a local pub that had musicians there that were workers who were working on the bogs for Bord na Móna, who would come from all different parts of the country and used to play sessions in a pub, and Dónal used to go out there, and he was beginning to play the guitar. And those musicians allowed Dónal, he said, and this is from Dónal himself, just find his way into the music as an accompanist with nothing to go on, really, except his ears.
I think Dónal, for me, he kind of spans that, move from trad to kind of having the heart of trad, but with electric instruments, and the influence that he's had on younger musicians is really I think that's a big thing. The other thing that struck me about the film was when he's teaching at, I think it's at UCD, and my own memory of traditional music was that it wasn't something that was respected, and it wasn't something that had a career path back in the day. Traditional musicians or traditional music didn't get that type of respect, and so that was something I really enjoyed about the film. I was just interested in how you wove Dónal's musical story with his personal story.
That was difficult. That was challenging. So I in the edit, there's many different cuts, many different ways of slicing what I had up, and I tried to do that slightly in the context of where he was at a given time. So his first marriage, broke up around the time that Planxty was really breaking out. And then so I thought, well, that's an opportunity for Judy. We were very lucky. I had Judy Murray, Judy Lunny, his wife. Um, I had what she said about what was happening at that time. So I had another voice that was looking at that situation from the outside, but that was weaving Planxty into it. So her story was they had a small baby. The Planxty thing was taking off. There was an awful lot of chaos around their life. They were very, very young. And Judy was only 18 when Oisin was born. So they were young people, and the pub life was kind of encroaching on family life, and it just was not working out. Like it's a challenge for two 18-year-olds to bring up a child anyway. And they had a double challenge because this was happening at the same time. So I just used as far as I could, I used those moments to break in with the personal life. The only exception to that was dealing with the story of Shane, his son, which I had to be very sensitive about. And I was very lucky that Shane's godmother, Angela Singleton, agreed to be a part of this. And she was able to literally put words on some of the things that had happened and talk about Dónal and Shane in a way that brought that story together. And I really, at that point, I stopped the film to do that. That was the only occasion I think I did that.
Thanks a million, Nuala. I could talk for a long, long time, but we've run out of time. Thanks Goramila Maya I got go on Scanon and Arlen. And thanks a million for spending the time with us, and good luck with the film, and give my best to Dónal when you next see him.
I certainly will.
Thank you for
having me, and thank you for screening the film. It's very important for us.
Slán agus a bheannacht.
Áilte